Yeah, thank you. I'm Reverend Father John Bakeni. I live and work in the Catholic Diocese of Maiduguri in northeastern part of Nigeria. I am the secretary of the diocese and the procreator of the diocese. And since the insurgency, I have been the coordinator of the displaced persons of the insurgency, and I coordinate in relief materials, and I represent the diocese and sometimes even the country at some international conferences in order to highlight the situation of Christians, but not just Christians, but the whole insurgency in northeastern part of Nigeria. Yeah, the persecution of Christians in northern Nigeria is well documented, and it's way back even before the insurgency. Boko Haram insurgency, some people try to place a timeline on it, but they have been there, since 90s, but they became more violent in 2003. And it is a terrorist group by all standard. And when they started, Christians and churches were targets, and we have suffered a lot of losses as a diocese in terms of lives, in terms of displaced people. As a church, we have over 90,000 displaced Catholics, and we have lost over 200 church buildings, over 20 rectories, over 3 convents, 4 clinics, over 25 schools. This is just the Catholic diocese. There are other Christians and then all that. Now, in the operations of the Boko Haram, the whole narration and method of attack has changed in the course of 8 years. Initially, it was Christians, that were attacked. But along the line, Muslims who do not share in the ideology, who do not support them, also were attacked. And when they started taking over villages and towns from the northern part of Borno State down to the southern part and even parts of Adamawa State, which is a neighboring state, so most of Muslim towns and villages fell. And so, as it is now, we can say both Muslims and Christians have been attacked by the Boko Haram, and they have suffered losses. And in terms of the displaced persons, actually, there are more Muslims. And in fact, I can even tell you that more Muslim lives have been lost, because we Christians, we are a minority. So the narration has changed, and so we have to run away from the danger of a single narration to now an inclusive narration that Boko Haram has attacked and destroyed both Christian and Muslim lives and properties. Hello. Boko Haram is a Salafist group, and like most terrorist organizations around the world, they all spring up from this Salafist ideology. And it started with their leader, who was Muhammad Yusuf, but he was arrested and killed, by the government way back in the 2013, I think. But the group has been there. We know them. We see them in Maiduguri. It's a small Islamic sect. So it came from this Salafist ideology that was championed by their first leader, which is Muhammad Yusuf, and then who was killed after being arrested when they became violent in 2009. And then Abubakar ibn Shekau took over the leadership of the group. And what is most amazing is the way this group has grown within the span of 8 years in sophistication, in terms of wealth funds, and even the weapons they use is very, very shocking and amazing. So in terms of origin, it started with Muhammad Yusuf, who is the leader, but the ideology is a Salafist ideology. And of course, in their videos, in their YouTubes, in their campaigns, they have made it very, very clear and classified Christians as infidels And so they must be destroyed, or they must be brought under the Islamic banner. Well, this is a very complex reality. No terrorist group, can survive this long without assistance from international, groups. The government of Nigeria and some people will deny it, but from the arrests made of some members of the Boko Haram, we have seen some of them, they are Arabs. So probably Tuaregs from either Libya, Mali, and all that. And so they have international connections. 2 years back, Boko Haram declared their allegiance to ISIS. So that all goes to show you that they have international connection. And I wouldn't want to tell you, but there are some deeper insights. I attended a meeting in Mauritania, where I met journalists that are in touch with them. And it is really true that while they have local support, it is a domestic terrorist group with an international backing. Yes, there were no journalists because those were the years that the attacks were very intense and killings were very much rampant, and so journalists were afraid of coming into the region for their safety, and the government would not even allow them. So we lived there. Of course, there were local journalists, but they were reporting only the things that they were aware of. But that contributed largely to the world not really knowing what is happening in that region. There was very minimal, report of the real situation that, of what was really happening there. So the journalists could not be there, of course, for the safety of their lives. And I can tell you that it was not really easy because, we lived through, sometimes a whole day of gunshots and bomb explosions. And so the airport was shut down, and there was only one road leading in and out of Borno State. And even that one road is not safe because some days people were slaughtered and killed and attacked even on that. So it was not really safe to come in. Well, in terms of
politics,
dialogue between the two religions, I would say yes, I would say no. Yes, in the sense that for long we have been living together in peace, so there is dialogue of life. We have been living side by side with no much problems. I mean, we are interacting very well. I have Muslim friends and then all that. But in terms of dialogue in the technical sense between Christians and Muslims, in Borno State, for instance, is not yet present. But in some parts of the country, there are a lot of efforts. In Abuja, in Kaduna, and Jos, and all that, there are a lot of efforts of interfaith relations, and then all that. But what we are learning now, and what we see as important in the Northeast, coming out, because the crisis is still on, is the need for the two groups to really come together and talk, since both of them have been affected. So there is a need for us to come together, and we are talking and speaking out as religious leaders, both Muslims and Christians, condemning, the Boko Haram ideology and their actions. That we have been doing that, and I think we need more of that, so that it will gain acceptance and then discourage even the young people from being recruited and being bought over by the Boko Haram terrorist group. Yeah. Well, I have been afraid for my life, and I studied and lived in Rome for 5-6 years, and when I finished my studies, I had to go back in the heat of the crisis. So when I got to my diocese, it was not easy. As a human being, there were a lot of times I felt afraid and discouraged, and my life has been threatened. The church, the cathedral where I live and work now, has been attacked and bombed twice. So there is a fear for my life. But again, I have a stronger conviction because of my faith. I have given my life to Christ. And so, and if he has gone through the same incidents, and there are a lot of Christians going through almost similar experiences in different parts of the world, I find strength and solace in that. That there's nothing as noble as one giving his life for the cause of the gospel. Well, Christians and Christianity were always for peace and reconciliation. Christians have suffered. They have been killed. Their means of livelihood have been destroyed. Their homes have been destroyed. Their places of worship have been destroyed, and then all that. But what you see now, if you go to that region, is stronger faith. Christians becoming more committed to the faith, coming to the church, and they are passionate and zealous about their faith. We have not been cowed by this whole experience. I know we have lost churches, we have lost rectories, schools and all that, but these are just physical. Our faith has not been destroyed. Our faith is still very much intact, very strong and assured. Yeah, well, the media is very important, but they can be very, very complex too sometimes. They have tried to report in Nigeria, like you have the presence of the local media and then the international media. Sometimes the government controls the type of information that goes out, and even like now, if you want to go to the northeast, you have to be accredited in Abuja. The soldiers have to clear you, and then all that. So it depends on what really. There are places you can be taken to, and there are people you may be allowed to meet or not, and then all that. So everything is being checked. But I think, to be fair to the media, both the local and international media, they have tried to report things as objective as they are. But although sometimes you don't really get the details, when we listen to it and then watch, sometimes we just laugh because we don't feel that, the real situation is being reported as it should be. The genocide must stop. And for the church, both in Nigeria, in Africa, and even here in Europe, we need to pray for one another, and we need to support one another, especially in this difficult and challenging time. But my conviction is that out of this whole experience, a new faith, a stronger faith will blossom.